Hello there, friends and sane persons. My name is Kyle. It's Wednesday, so it's time for another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Today we're talking about a game, as usual. A reminder for those who are new to this show, it's a Wednesday show where every Wednesday evening I come here and present some sort of board game related topic, whether it be an in-depth discussion of a game or a game mechanism or a top 10 list, whatever happened to cross my mind that week. Today's game that we're talking about is a tiny little cooperative game. It is called The Reckoners. This is just the box lid. I'm not really that strong. The Reckoners is a game that came out a couple years ago. And, well, I guess I can put my banner up there. It is a cooperative game that takes you through the world of the Reckoners series, which is a series of books by Brandon Sanderson. In the series, the world is something has happened, and there's a bunch of superpowered individuals. And nearly 100% of those superpowered individuals are using their superpowers for evil. There's all kinds of supervillains, and there's a group of regular unpowered humans who are trying to take them down. The book series had 3 books. They were Steelheart, Firefight, and Calamity. And then I think just about half a year ago, a 4th one came out that's kind of a spin-off series called The Texas Reckoners. The book is called Lux. I have not read Lux, but I've read the others in the series more than once. They're a very interesting, it's an interesting world that's been created, interesting characters, and an interesting development. Essentially, each of these super creatures has a special weakness, and this group of people is sort of trying to figure out what those weaknesses are. And that's kind of what you're doing in the game. You take on one or more, if you're playing solo, of these Reckoner characters from the books, and you're going around the city and you're fighting off various bad guys. The game the original game follows just sort of the first book, Steelheart, but recently we got an expansion called Steel Slayer that takes you through the other 2 books as well, using the same basic game mechanisms, but adding some different characters and some new rules to kind of keep things fresh and interesting. Apparently, there's also a campaign version you can play. I've not played that, but I have played each of the scenarios. And let's get talking about them then. So we're going to talk first about how it works. So like I mentioned, this is a cooperative game. So you're working together. And it's kind of that sort of standard Yahtzee mechanism that you see in games like, well, Yahtzee or King of Tokyo, where you're going to roll these dice, and you've got a total of 3 rolls, and each roll you have to keep at least 1 die, but you can keep more. So there's sort of a dice rolling phase, and you can talk to each other during this and sort of plan on what you're doing, and then after you've rolled all your dice, you've got what you've got. And you're going to go through an action phase in which everybody takes turns, not in any particular order. You know, I could take 2 actions that help you set up for something else, and then you can take 3 actions, however you want to divide it up, working together. And you're trying to clear the city of various bad guys. Your ultimate goal, at least in the first game, is to take out Steelheart. Steelheart is an invincible character. He's invulnerable. He can fly, and he's just generally pretty evil. In fact, the version of the game I have, I don't know if I'll be able to find it now. I will. Came with a fully metal version of Steelheart, just kind of to add some flavor to that. And then in the second scenario, you're taking out Regalia, who is a water villain. She can manipulate water and pretty much do anything with water. She can even hear things through it from far away. And then you have a character called Limelight, who has unusual and unpredictable powers and is in the city of Atlanta, which is a floating city made out of salt. You know, who knew? So you're going to there's a couple of locations on the board, and you're going to move to these locations. And in each location, there's going to be generally a mini boss. I'm hoping this can be seen. Like here we have Cinder, and you'll see that she has certain stats, right? She's got a research stat of 3 and a health stat of 6. Now, what you're able to do is you're able to use your dice, and one thing you can do is use this research symbol, which is going to decrease the research. And once you get the research all the way down to 0, her health essentially halves. So you could kill her either just by fighting her, or you could kill her by researching her weakness. But other characters like Firefight here, you'll see Firefight has an infinite symbol for his health, meaning you can't damage him at all until you've researched him. And once you've researched him, his health goes to 4, and now you're able to take him down. So that's kind of how those characters are working. And you're going to use the various symbols on the dice to do different actions. You can use any die to move. There are these annoying barricades that are going to build up, and you can use any die to take those down and allow you to move again. And then there are special symbols. There's a money symbol, which you can use to get money to buy different goods, different gear that's going to give you special abilities. There's the research symbol we already talked about. There is the skull symbol is the attack symbol, so you'll use it to weaken the epics, the characters. There is this symbol, which gives you a wild token, but generally you can't use the wild token till the next turn. So you can save them up and have a really good turn in the future, but you'll do a little bit less right now. There's this symbol, which weakens the epic. And what I mean by that is at the end of the round, this bracket symbol here is going to show you the negative things that the epic is going to do. And so by weakening it, you're going to have it do fewer and fewer actions. And it's going to, of course, want to increase to do all kinds of bad things. And then there's also these police officers that are in the city, and they're going to cause the epics to increase in power more quickly. And so this lets you take them out as well. So you're using your dice, working together. Sometimes, you'll have cards that let you use them in different ways, get you multiple symbols, get you other special abilities. And once you've taken out one of these epics, one of these sort of mini bosses, you get various bonuses. And your ultimate goal is to take out the big bad, who, at least in the first game, is Steelheart. And the thing about him is he also has infinite life. So you have to research his weakness all the way down, and only then does his health meter come into play, and you're able to kill him. And if you do that, you win the game. You can lose the game generally there's a population track, and so various effects are going to attack the population of the city. And when the death toll gets too high, you lose the game. So I think you start with 40 population. It is possible, although rare, to increase them, but you generally will be decreasing them. And that's kind of the penalty. Whenever there's something bad you need to do and you can't do it, it's just going to decrease that population track, pushing you further and further towards a sad end to your game. You also have the ability to buy new dice, right? These dice, I've shown you, there's different colors. The white ones are basic, and all the dice have each symbol on them, but there's one symbol that they have twice, like this green die has this green attack symbol on it twice. And so the purple die is going to have a double research symbol. And so by getting these special dice, you're able to kind of specialize. And you start with some, so it's not like you're hitting the ground without a little bit of preparation. Each character has special abilities that they can use each turn, a variety of different ones. And as you get into the expansion, it adds, I think, 4 new characters that have different special abilities and different combinations of starting dice. A lot of different things are going on, but really what you're doing is sort of rolling your dice, working together to pick the symbols that you need, using your special abilities, trying to time when things are going to go off so that you can maximize the benefit. And the ultimate goal, of course, is to reduce Steelheart or Regalia or Limelight, reduce their research icon to 0 so that you can then get their health in play and attack and hopefully defeat them. So that's kind of how the game works. Let's talk about what makes it special. So there's a couple of special things about this. The first thing is the components in the game are really fantastic. I've shown you a few, like these trays. These trays are these game trays, and they're very useful in the game. That you just sort of keep them in the box. It makes setup a little bit easier. They help keep track of the health meters, and they're very nice quality. The minis that come with the game, there's one for each character. I have the painted versions, so I don't really know what the unpainted ones are like, but they're nice quality. The paint jobs are decent, better than I could do. uh, Other than Regalia, but she's made out of water, so she doesn't need to be painted. Um, the dice are nice. They're nice custom dice, sort of that nice screen printing on them, and they're large and easy to handle, very satisfying, nice weight, very fun to roll. The cards are nice. Mine came with sleeves, so I sleeved them. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. It's just generally a high quality proposition. All of the tokens are not, plastic or metal, and very nice quality, easy to use. Nothing really feels out of place or cheap in the game. So it definitely delivers on the component standpoint. It also, another plus is that it follows the story of the various books, and it does so. The first book is basically the first game, and the other two variations from the Steel Slayer expansion have small changes to the rules that help them to sort of feel like their own adventure as you fight the different epics in those cities. So it gives you a nice feel if you already know the stories, the books that it's based on. It sort of has some nice, satisfying moments. It's always nice to see somebody's visual representation of a character that you've read about. But unlike some books where you're following a story, in this one you're not railroaded through the story, right? I mean, you are trying to reach the end, but you're going to do things in a different way each time. It's not a story game. It's a game that has a story, I guess, that sort of has a good thematic integration. I think it works really well. It helps you to sort of figure out and understand what you're doing, helps you learn the game. The thematic incorporation is really quite nice. It's also a good cooperative game. You really have to work together if you're going to win this thing, and there's just so much going on that it just, you really need to depend on other people to be helping you out and using their roles to help you to use yours, and so that you work together and get the best possible result that you can. And it also allows each person kind of their own moment to shine, right? My special ability is really useful in this particular scenario, and we just happen to be in that scenario, so I can kind of cash in on that and feel really good about what I've done. There's one character who can change any die to any face. There's one character who doesn't ever have to save dice, and he has got one of each color, and so he's kind of a wild card in there. There's one character who can use uh, one particular symbol. I think it's this skull symbol, to be, I think, three of the police symbols. So he's really good at kind of clearing those things out because they can stack up very quickly. There's also a lot of different difficulty levels. The difficulty adjustment is pretty easy and intuitive. You've got this board for them. I mean, one way you can do it, of course, is by increasing or decreasing the health or research of the characters. But these tokens here pop out, and on the other side are different icons which can make the game more or less difficult. And so there's a lot of different ways to adjust that. The rules give you suggestions on how to do it as well. It's very nice. I find that I can almost most of the time win on beginner difficulty, and standard I find to be quite challenging. I've never played the hard, or what is it called, Sparks difficulty mode in the game, but it's nice to sort of be able to do that. And then there's sort of micro ways to adjust it within different parameters as well. Very nice. You can kind of get the kind of game experience that you want. It's also maybe one of the best versions of that Yahtzee style mechanism where you're rolling the dice three times and saving some between them. It's a nice implementation. It adds a little bit of luck to the game, but it also it's a sort of the kind of mechanism that people relate to easily, very easy to teach. The symbols on the dice are very clear what they do, and it's a nice way to kind of have that experience with a nice cooperative thematic overlay. So those are some things that make the game particularly special. Again, it's one that I've enjoyed for quite a while now. So where's the but? That's always the question we ask here. There's some things that maybe aren't as good. One of them, I kind of already showed the lid of the box. The box is huge and very heavy, and if you get that expansion, it doesn't really fit in the base game box. So you're kind of going to keep both boxes around. It's just very large, and also because it uses these game trays, which themselves are not small, it's going to take up a lot of space around the table. So you're going to need a big table, especially if you have more than just 2 or 3 players, because you're going to have more and more locations. It's really not going to be a very good travel game, for example. So that's kind of that's something to it's I don't know that it's the game's fault. It's just something to consider if you're thinking about the game. Also, on the another thing is I mentioned the difficulty, and I kind of hinted at this. It's pretty difficult. It's not easy to win this game, even on the lower difficulty levels. I've gotten to a point where I've played it enough that I can usually win on the very lowest difficulty setting, but I think it's definitely not something that I think you're going to go to the hard mode early on. You're going to play it a lot before you get there. There's also while I said the symbols on the dice are pretty clear, there's all these various equipment cards, and some of their symbols are a little bit less intuitive. Here's an example. What this card means is you can use either of those symbols, the purple or the green, on spaces that are adjacent to you, but you wouldn't really know that just by looking at it. Sometimes they're easy, right? I mean, use this die to get those things, but I don't know. There are a lot of symbols, and I kind of always wish that they'd gone with text. Whenever there's a lot of symbols, you can find them all in the rule book, but if you have the expansion and mix in there the cards from that expansion, you've then got 2 rule books. There's not really a handy reference, so that's going to be something that's kind of a drawback of the game. Also, the game can get a little bit repetitive, just because you're each turn rolling the dice, using the dice, bad stuff happens. And it kind of is a rinse, lather, repeat formula. Now, fortunately, you're going to lose the game pretty quickly or win it pretty quickly. It can be a little longer, but it can get a little repetitive, especially if you play multiple games in a row. I generally will play it 2 or 3 or 4 times and then put it away for a few months and then bring it back so that it kind of feels fresh and new again. And also, the last negative thing about the game is that it's a little bit expensive, and I think kind of hard to find. At least the new expansion is. There's a lot in the game, but you're definitely going to be paying more than maybe you want to just to try something out to come up with this game. Now, I mentioned at the beginning it's the same designers as Stockpile. If you liked Stockpile, that has no meaning at all on whether you'll like this. I mean, these are just 2 very, very different games. So, who's the game for? It's going to be for people. So, if you like The Reckoners or you like Brandon Sanderson as an author, this game's probably for you. You probably already own it because it's definitely the best game based upon his writings. There are a couple others that have dipped their toes in it, but they haven't been very good. But this one is a good game, and it's definitely for a person who enjoys that world. If you've read Steelheart a couple of times, hey, get the base game, you'll love it. And if you have read the rest of the series, you'll find joy in opening the expansion box and seeing how those characters are included as well. It's also going to be for people who like cooperative games. Obviously, that's not everybody. I like them. I especially like them because they can be played solo, and this one works well solo. You do have to control 2 characters, but that's okay. I mean, that's fine. That gives you access to more actions and lets them kind of work together. So it works really well for solo or co-op players. if if you're not going to play it a lot, it's probably not worth the cost. But if you can find it some convention or something and try it out, you might really enjoy it. What rating do I get it? I'd give it an 8 out of 10. It's one that I like coming back to a lot. I won't play it more than 4 or 5 times in a row, and then I'll kind of put it away for a while. I almost wish there were an app where I could kind of burn through a couple of games at once, but it's kind of on the large side, so I'm not always looking to pull it out and set it up. But when it does come out, I always have a good time with it. I really like it as a two-player game. That just kind of feels like the magic spot, although three is pretty good too, just because you've got some other people to work with. And the game kind of gets a little on the longer side if you add more people in, just because everyone's getting 6 or 7 actions per turn. So once you start adding those together, it can kind of slow things down. I think as a 2 or 3 player game, though, it's one of the best cooperative games out there. Not the best. Obviously, there are a couple I like more than that, but it's definitely a good one. Definitely one I enjoy, and definitely one that you will enjoy if you like cooperative dice games, or if you like the Reckoners series. So that's it for this episode of Wednesday Whimsy. I hope you had a good time talking about the Reckoners. I almost want to play it since I clearly have it out now. Uh, but I've enjoyed having this talk with you. We will see you again in a week's time to talk about another great game or another great game related topic. I have not decided what it is yet. We'll see what what I'm in the mood for next Wednesday. But with that, I will wish you all a good night or good whatever other time of the day you happen to be watching this. If you've played the Reckoners or read the books, go ahead and put some comments down below. We'd love to hear what you think. And we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.